Hi students, welcome to week 2. I wanted to do a brief video for you to cover some of the topics that we will be discussing this week and also to answer a couple of the questions that I've received from a few of you. So before I get started, I just wanted to make sure that you noticed that your grades were posted for your genogram part A. And thank you for submitting those. And then I also wanted to let you know that I will be viewing your introduction and cultural videos in the next day or two, as well as reviewing your feedback for your classmates. And I love that assignment. It's actually probably one of my favorite assignments for this course, and hopefully you enjoyed making your video and then also viewing your peers' videos. I think it's a great assignment for me as an instructor because it gives me an opportunity to put a face with a name for each of you, and also because it gives me an idea of sort of who's in this class and what your backgrounds are, how you self-identify, what your cultural makeup is, what your family perspective is, and I just think it's a wonderful opportunity to sort of feel a little bit more connected to you as students and hopefully to help you feel more connected to each other as classmates. So hopefully each of you got an opportunity to view everybody's videos, or will do so if you haven't done so already, in addition to commenting on 2 of your peers. I know, like I said, it's one of my favorite things, and so I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to view all of those videos in the coming days. For this week, you have 2 assignments due. Your first assignment is Genogram Part B. So for this assignment, what you're being asked to do is reflect on the process of creating your genogram and answer some prompts related to that, which you will see under the Week 2 tab for that assignment. As I noted when I did the course introduction post, this course does require APA format. However, this is one of those assignments that I am perfectly okay with you utilizing first person for. For a personal reflection, I just feel like it's much more, makes a lot more sense to write it in first person than it does, to avoid using first person. So please feel free to utilize first person in Genogram Part B, your personal reflection. And again, you're talking about your own genogram when you share that assignment with me. And that assignment is only shared with me and not with your classmates. So, please feel free to disclose or refrain from disclosing as you feel is appropriate. And if anything comes up during that process, again, we always encourage students to utilize resources available. So if you feel like there's something you would like to discuss further on a more personal level, we always encourage students to utilize the university's counseling system if you think that would be helpful to you. For some people, going through the genogram is just a great exercise in, reviewing their family history, and for others, it may bring up painful things or things that maybe trigger something for you. And you may find that throughout this class as well, so that's always a resource that's available that we strongly encourage you to utilize. Self-care is really, really important, particularly for professionals in our field of social work. A lot of times we take on the issues and pain that we are exposed to in the day-to-day world, whether that is professionally or personally. Many social workers tend to be incredibly empathetic, and so I know for me personally, sometimes seeing somebody else struggle can cause me some sort of emotional turmoil, and sometimes reliving painful things in my family history or personal history can cause that. So please don't hesitate to utilize those resources if you feel like they would be useful or valuable to you. So that's your genogram part B, and you'll notice the writing instructions are in the assignment, and again, first person is okay for this assignment. Your other assignment is a discussion post, so this is not a video, it's a post this week, where you are asked to talk about SBIRT, which is screening, brief intervention, and referral for treatment. And you're also asked to discuss motivational interviewing. Again, both of these in context of working with Hispanic families. So if you look under that assignment and you look under Week 2's required readings, you'll see that you have several readings related to working with couples, working with families with young children, multi-generational households, crossing the threshold into adolescence and how that impacts Hispanic families. So a lot of really good reading topics. It's a topic area that I particularly find interesting. In my day-to-day field, I don't work directly with SBIRT. However, as a social worker and as someone who works a lot with families and strengthening families, SBIRT is something that I'm seeing come up more and more in professional development opportunities, and it's a clinical practice that's getting utilized more frequently among practitioners that I'm personally interacting with. I think I mentioned in my week 1 video that the facility that I work in houses a medical clinic for uninsured children. And so while we don't traditionally do a lot of screening for most children related to substance abuse issues, when we get up into the middle school, junior high, high school years, those are questions that we ask. Questions about whether anybody in the household drinks regularly, whether anybody uses tobacco products, whether the minor themselves drinks or uses tobacco products, what their exposure is to drugs inside or outside of the household. And so it's relevant practice to be able to conduct a brief screening and intervention and then refer for appropriate treatment. Referral is a big topic in this course, and I think as a social worker in particular, it's really important to be able to identify when it's appropriate to serve a client's needs and when it's appropriate to provide a referral, and to also have an understanding for the context of this course when working with Hispanic families, maybe what some of the cultural elements are at play and what the relationships are within families and the family dynamics that might help you make a decision about when it's appropriate to do a screening and to complete a referral, and when it might be appropriate to do a brief intervention. And a piece of that is discussing motivational interviewing also, which you will see is covered in your discussion topic for this week. And motivational interviewing is also something that when I was in college we discussed, and I utilize it sort of informally on a day-to-day basis at work. I find that motivational interviewing with everyone from clients to my employees can be a valuable tool. And, oftentimes if we can identify the motivation that makes people want to seek change in their lives, it is much more productive and helps us come up with goals with those clients that are client-led. And client-led goals that are based on the client's individual motivations tend to be goals that are more frequently followed up with than goals that the social worker maybe comes to them and says, this is what I think you should do. So identifying motivation can be a really key factor to success with some of our families that we work with. So I think these are great topics to discuss, and I'm interested in hearing what you all find in the research. You'll notice in that assignment you are asked to identify 2 resources outside of the class readings that you can find research about motivational interviewing related to, and SBIRT related to working with Hispanic families. So it's always a great opportunity to do a little more research on your own and find some sources that are evidence-based and have solid practices for doing their research, and being able to read what they wrote and integrate that into your own thought process and come up with your own sort of summary of how you feel about those methodologies and how you might utilize them and how it applies to working with Hispanic families. So 2 pretty straightforward assignments this week. In addition to that, you should be working with your volunteer family. If you've looked ahead to week 3, you will notice that there is an assignment that asks you to utilize your volunteer family to do a role-playing exercise on video. And so this is a great opportunity for those of you who maybe don't know your volunteer family very well to kind of do a practice run with them. The week 3 assignment, when you look ahead, you'll notice you're given 3 different scenarios to choose from, and you're asked to have your family role play as your client in one of those scenarios. And to some students it seems a little bit silly, but it really is a good opportunity to sit down and practice interviewing that family and having them be on camera or at least audio, and get comfortable with you in a way that's sort of non-threatening and doesn't ask them to disclose any personal information. So we do try to focus on having our families volunteer and help us with that project. If you have not identified a volunteer family before, I've had this question from a couple of students. I recognize it can be challenging, which is why we encourage you before week 1 even starts to start thinking about it and looking at ways that you can recruit. If you live in a community where the population doesn't include a lot of Hispanic identifying individuals, it can be really challenging. We do encourage you not to utilize your own clients. However, if you need to utilize a family member and they're willing to participate, knowing what exactly the assignments are, so hint, please look ahead to week 7's assignments because you'll need to know about the interviews, and in week 5 the case summary. You are asked to have your family that you're working with disclose some personal information, so you want to make sure whoever you're working with is comfortable with that. But you can utilize a family member, you can utilize a friend, you can utilize an acquaintance. If any of you are having difficulty identifying anyone to help you, I would strongly encourage you to post here and see if any of your classmates either identify as Hispanic and would be willing to anonymously maybe serve as that. You can protect their identity and give them a pseudonym and not show their face. They do have to sign the consent form, but I will be the only person who knows that they signed the consent form. And you could always have somebody else in their family sign that consent form, so I don't even necessarily have to know that it was one of your classmates that you're utilizing if you don't show them on video. So that's one way to approach that. Another way would be perhaps to reach out to your classmates and see if any of them know someone who would be willing to serve as your volunteer. So I would recommend those two avenues. If you happen to be a Hispanic identifying individual, or you know somebody who would be willing to volunteer for one of your classmates, and you have a classmate looking, please do reach out and let them know. That help is always appreciated by other students. So with all that said, we are headed into week 2, and hopefully it will be a great week for all of you. If you have questions, please feel free to email me on Engage, or if it's something urgent, send me a text. Thank you so much. Have a great week.